The best indication of future performance in sports betting is most recent performance. In this video, we're going to discuss why you'll lose money long-term in sports betting if you focus on trends instead of focusing on recent stats. Guys, my name's MG Covers. If this is your first time watching one of my videos, greatly appreciate you subscribing to the channel. If you want to follow me on Instagram, I'm MG Covers, Covers spelled with a Z. I give out a ton of content related to sports betting, things I see in the marketplace, maybe a lean on a particular game. So you get a ton of value by subscribing to the channel for free, and also follow me on Instagram. Twitter is the same screen name, MG Covers, Covers spelled with a Z. Super excited to talk about this video. I'm going to cover a lot. I almost made this video a coaching video that would be only available to clients, but I decided to make it a public video because this is filled with a lot of really good educational teaching points related to sports betting. So let's dive into this. And all the concepts that I teach, I like to use a real life example. So what we're going to look at is yesterday's game between Boston and Toronto. Just to provide some context here, this is my power rankings from yesterday, 629. You can see my line was Boston minus 130, Toronto minus 125. So this is a classic 50-50 game, which means it's a coin flip game. Anybody can win it. We can expect Boston to win 50% of the time, Toronto to win 50% of the time. However, the line for this game was, let's scroll back over here. It was Boston, yeah, plus 138. We actually played Boston. Go ahead and tell you what we did. We played Boston here at plus 150, and we're going to talk about why. So, again, it met all the criteria of a 50-50 game. That favors the dog in this scenario. But more specifically, what I want to focus on is this right here. You see, in sports betting, as I open this video, the best indication of future performance, whether you're building a model or you're handicapping, is most recent performance. Now, the way that I teach and what I focus on when I'm evaluating a pitcher is their last 3 starts. I'm not saying there might be sharps that handicap this another way. I'm just telling you what's made me successful handicapping baseball. I found the last 3 his last 3 starts, whether home or away, that's going to be a better indication and more predictive of how he's going to pitch in the next game than focusing on a trend, which is what we're going to look at in this video, or this screenshot here. This came from, I can't remember the betting site. It says Toronto Blue Jays been very profitable. Toronto minus 161 have won 7 of the last 8 meetings against the Red Sox, including 6 of the last 7 home. This is important. This is the stat. The Blue Jays have also been torturing Red Sox pitcher Nick Pivetta, who has a 7.68 ERA in his last 2 starts against Toronto this season. Now, I would be willing to bet a lot of people, the majority of people that play Toronto, that particular stat, which I would consider that a trend, that's not a recent stat, that's the stat that they focused on, okay? Now, I want to show you something. Let's take a look at Nick Pivetta's last 3 starts. Now, this is what I focus on, and this is what you should focus on in pitchers, their last 3 starts, because that's going to be more a better indication of how they're going to pitch in this game. Look at his last 3 starts. He was 3-0, 1.64 ERA. That's good. So he pitched a total of 22 innings, only gave up 4 earned runs. Now, if you go back to this trend, 7.68 ERA in his last 2 starts against Toronto. Now, that is a statistical fact. That is what his ERA was within his last 2 starts against Toronto. But let's dig a little bit deeper. Well, let's go ahead and cut to the chase here. So if you look at, just to prove my point, sorry about that, Nick Pivetta, okay, 3-0, 1.64 ERA. So he's pitched really well in his last 3 starts. And like I said, that's the best indication, and he's more likely to perform the way he did in those last 3 starts than to perform like that trend of 7.64. So let's take a look at the box score. And what you'll see is he pitched 6 innings. He gave up 2 earned runs for a 3.25 ERA. So the point is his performance was closer to the way I teach his last 3 starts than this trend 7.68. And let me talk about why that is. So let's go to Nick Pivetta's stats and let's take a look at those 2 Toronto starts. Okay, look at these are his last, if you want to break it down. Okay, so I'll go ahead and highlight. There's his last 3 starts right there. So he pitched 7 innings against Cleveland, gave up 2 earned runs. He pitched against St. Louis, gave up 1 earned run in 7 innings. He pitched 8 innings against Oakland and gave up 1 earned run. So he was in great form. This trend that they reference Toronto, it wasn't even in the last 10 games. Look at this. That trend was way back in April 26th. He pitched against Toronto, gave up 2 runs on 4 innings pitched, and then he gave up 5 runs. Whoops, I didn't mean to do that. On April 20th. So the problem with these stats or this trend, it was on April 20th and April the 26th, literally May, June, almost 3 months ago. And that proves my point. And I'm going to say it again. The best indication of future performance in sports betting is most recent performance. I'll give you another example in football. You'll see this a lot. Let's just say hypothetically, there's this trend that the Minnesota Vikings, when playing at Dallas, they're 17-3. Okay. And people will put a lot of stock and a lot of emphasis on that trend. But if that's a 20-game trend, that trend probably lasts maybe 10, 15 years. But let's say hypothetically, Minnesota was 0-3 in their last 3 games. As a handicapper, as a sharp, I would put more emphasis, more weight on those last 3 games than I would that trend that spans 10 years. Because again, the best indication of future performance in sports betting is most recent performance. All right, now, let me talk about one other concept that's real simple. Let's talk about regression to the mean. Now, Nick Pivetta was 7.68 in his last 2 starts at Toronto, right? So that's an extremely high ERA, right? The average ERA in Major League Baseball probably, I don't know, maybe 3.5, 3.5. So regression to the mean means you're always going back to, quote, average, right? For example, if a hitter in baseball, his last 10 at-bats, he has 7 hits. So he's 7 for 10 in his last 10 at-bats. Is he more likely to go 7-10 in his next 10 at-bats, or is he more likely to go maybe 3-10 or 2-10? He's more likely to go 2-10 or 3-10 than 7-10 because he's regressing back to the mean. Right now in baseball, we're on a 5-0 run in baseball in our last 5 picks. Are we more likely to go 5-0 in our next 5 picks, or 2-3 or 3-2? We're most likely to go 2-3 or 3-2 as opposed to going 5-0 because we're regressing back to the average in sports betting, which is 50%. So that's regression to the mean. So you don't have to be that smart to realize if he's 7.68 in his last 2 starts at Toronto, it's highly unlikely that he's going to have an ERA of 7.68 in his next start. It's more likely to regress back to an average. And then finally, this is an interesting trend too. Let's take a look at, okay, so his ERA was 7.68 ERA against Toronto in the last 2 games. Guess who the best hitting team in baseball is this season, year to date? It's the Toronto Blue Jays, 7.58 OPS year to date. Why is that important? Because every pitcher that pitches against Toronto probably is going to have a higher ERA against Toronto. Why? Because they're the best damn hitting team in Major League Baseball this year. So that's another reason why this trend is extremely flawed. So to review this, in sports betting, very important, what you want to focus on, whether it's, for example, let's just review. Baseball, my model uses stats from the last 10 games. NHL, I use stats from the last 10 games. For NFL, I use stats from the last 4 games. College football, I use stats from the last 3 games. So you can see a trend here. Most recent performance is going to give you the best indication. If you follow some trend that's like 10 years old, it's just not applicable. Now, there are certain trends, and I'll give you an example of a legit trend. For NBA or NHL or any professional sport that has a 7-game series, if a team is down 2-0 in that series and they're playing the 3rd game of that series at home, more times than not, that team that's down 0-2 will win game 3. And if you go back and you want to research this trend, you'll see that team's almost always favored at the books in that game 3. So there's certain trends that are relevant, but more times than not, recent stats, if you focus on recent stats, that will give you the best indication and the best way to handicap, and also the best way to construct models. So I hope this video helped. As always, if you want to subscribe to the site, it's $49.95 per month. You get access to these power rankings that had Boston as the winner, as well as we played Detroit yesterday, another classic 50-50 game. You can see here both teams were plus 135. Played Detroit. I think we got Detroit for plus 175. So in addition to that, you get all my coaching videos. I think I have 2 coaching videos I released this week. I release 1 coaching video per week. So you get a ton of information. Again, I almost made this a coaching video. So if you're curious what coaching videos are all about, pretty much like this video here today, you get a ton of educational value. If you want access to all my plays, that's $99 per month. You get access to all my plays I release, in addition to everything else I mentioned. And if you want to join for an entire year, that's the best way. It's like getting an associate's degree in sports betting. It's only $4.99 for the entire year. You save about $600. There's a link to join in the description box. Hope this video helps. Again, remember to focus on recent stats and be leery of trends. Talk to you guys soon. Peace.